Step 1. The night passenger. You are driving a man whose face is on a federal alert board, and your hands are completely steady. That steadiness will bother you later. Tonight, you don't question it. You sit with both hands at 10 and 2, watching the wipers beat rain off the glass in long diagonal sweeps, and you don't turn up the radio, and you don't adjust the vents, and you don't do anything that could be read as nervous. Because you have already understood, in the first 30 seconds of this drive, that nervous is not something you can afford to be tonight. You picked up the booking 3 hours ago, an app that deleted itself after the fare confirmed. A private hangar on the east edge of San Antonio, not a hotel lobby, not a restaurant. A client name that matches nothing in any database you searched afterward. And you searched, sitting in the parking lot with the engine running and your phone getting hot in your hand. You searched because something about the booking felt like a door that would only open once, and you needed to know what was behind it before you drove through. You grew up in this city. You know the neighborhoods that go quiet because they're asleep and the ones that go quiet because they're waiting. Tonight's road is the second kind. You took this job because your sister's hospital bill arrived the same week your landlord sent the third notice. You need to understand that. You were not reckless. You were not foolish. You were a night driver in a city that doesn't pay night drivers enough, and you did the math that desperation always forces you to do, and the math came out one way. You notice his shoes in the rearview mirror. Italian leather. The kind of expensive that's been broken in slowly, deliberately. His hands rest on one knee with a stillness you recognize, not relaxation. Discipline. He has decided not to move. That decision is visible. A gas station slides past on the right. A screen above the cigarette display. A federal photograph. You recognize the face before you understand that you recognize it. Your hands stay at 10 and 2. You keep driving. Step 2. The offer. You are in a corner cafe in Alamo Heights, and you are trying to look like a man who hasn't already decided. She arrives 2 days after the drive. Not through a mutual contact. Not through a threat. She simply knows where you take your coffee on Tuesday mornings, which tells you everything about the organization before she says a word. She is mid-40s, silk blouse, reading glasses on a thin chain, the kind of compose that takes years of sitting in rooms where composure is the only currency that works. She orders a cordido and opens no files and makes no introduction. She says your sister's name. She says the hospital. She says the outstanding balance down to the dollar. You feel the floor shift slightly, not with fear, but with the particular vertigo of realizing you have already been inside someone's planning for longer than you knew. She is not threatening you. You need to understand that distinction. She is telling you the coordinates of your own life so you can see exactly where the help would land. Quietly, without apology, the way a surgeon describes the incision before making it. You want to say no? You had rehearsed no in the car on the way here. You had scripted the way your chair would scrape back, the way you'd leave the coffee untouched, the way it would feel to walk to the parking lot with your refusal intact. You had run through the whole scene, and it had felt clean and correct. But your sister is 26. She studied. She worked. She did everything right and got sick anyway. And being right has not produced a single dollar toward making her well. You understand, sitting across from this woman in a cafe that smells like roasted coffee and normal Tuesday mornings, what desperation actually looks like. It does not arrive loud. It does not announce itself. It arrives wearing a silk blouse and a precise number, and it sounds exactly like relief. She slides a car key across the table. Don Aurelio isn't hiring your hands, she says. A pause. Careful. Deliberate. He's hiring your judgment. You look at the key. You look at the table. You think about your sister's face the last time you sat beside her hospital bed. You pick up the key. The coffee you ordered goes cold, and you never touch it. Step 3. The quiet man. You drive Don Aurelio for the first time on a Wednesday, and you spend the entire route waiting for him to be what you expected. He isn't. He is 61, compact, silver-haired. With reading glasses he pushes to his forehead when he wants to think clearly. He wears linen shirts in colors that don't demand attention. He keeps a paperback in his left jacket pocket. Always philosophy. Always dog-eared in 3 or 4 places. Always different from the last time you checked. In your first month driving him, you watch him finish Seneca and begin Marcus Aurelius and leave a copy of Simone while in the back seat one Thursday morning that you're not sure was accidental. You drive him on long roads. Texas highways at dusk. Border routes before sunrise. Small private airports with no signage and no visible staff. He does not make phone calls during your drives. He watches the land move past with the particular patience of someone who has been still long enough to learn something from it. You notice this because you have never sat beside power before, and you expected it to be loud. You stop once outside Laredo for fuel, and you watch a woman in her 70s catch sight of him from a picnic table and press her hand flat against her chest without saying a word. He crosses to her without being asked. He sits. He listens for several minutes. He asks nothing. He leaves, and you don't know what was said, but you know something was transferred. You learn about a school with a new roof in a town whose name you don't catch. You hear about medical bills paid in cash. Groceries delivered without explanation. You start to feel something you weren't prepared to feel. Not admiration, exactly, but a discomfort that comes from the refusal of simple answers. You wanted him to be obvious. Obvious would have been easier to carry. One night, deep into a highway where there is nothing on either side but flat, dark land and the engine's steady note, his voice comes from the back seat. Unhurried. Low. Do you believe people are born good? He asks, or just rewarded for looking that way? You keep your eyes on the road. You don't answer. And for the rest of the drive, neither does he. Step 4. The financial advisor. You pick up Mateo Valverde outside Houston on a Tuesday afternoon, and you know within 3 miles that this man has something he needs to say. He is slim, late 30s, the kind of precise that comes from a life organized around detail. His suit fits correctly. His watch is good. His shoes need resoling, and you notice this because everything else about him is so deliberate that the shoes feel like the one place where the performance slipped. He sets his leather portfolio on the seat beside him the way someone places an object they've learned not to trust to other hands. For 20 miles, he reads emails. Then he sets his phone face down on the portfolio. He looks at the rearview mirror. At you. How long? You tell him. He nods once, the way a person nods when a number confirms what they already calculated. You still think you're outside it. Not an accusation. A diagnosis. You haven't carried anything. You haven't signed anything. You've driven, listened, kept your mouth right. You think that puts a wall between you and the rest of it. You don't answer. Your silence is the answer. I know exactly what you think, Mateo says, because I thought it in precisely those words. He looks out at the long, flat stretch of Texas sliding past the window. I had a number, he says. A specific number. I wrote it in a notebook with a date next to it, the way you write a flight departure time. 18 months. Clean exit. I can still see the handwriting. He is quiet for a moment. That notebook is in a storage unit in Austin. I stopped being able to visit around year 3. You drive. The road goes straight and long toward a sky, starting to go orange at the edges. A system doesn't require cruelty from you, he says. It only requires usefulness. And usefulness gets rewarded. And the rewards become reasons. And the reasons accumulate faster than the exits do. You won't feel the door close. You'll just one day realize you've stopped looking for it. Past Luling, hawks turn slow circles above the highway. You watch them in your peripheral vision and say nothing. Then, almost to himself, almost like he forgot you were listening. The dangerous part isn't when you start getting paid. The dangerous part is when your conscience starts invoicing itself. You feel the weight of it settle in your chest before you understand it. That's the worst kind of true. Step 5, the improvement. You notice it first in small things. Your refrigerator works without making noise. Your shoes are the right kind. Your mother sleeps through the night. You tell yourself this is repair, not accumulation. You need that distinction. Repair means returning to baseline. It means you are fixing a deficit that was never your fault, correcting an unfairness, leveling a floor that should have been leveled to begin with. Accumulation means choosing, and you have not decided to choose yet. You hold this distinction carefully because it is the last version of yourself that feels clean. But you notice the other things too, and they are harder to categorize. You stop calling two friends who ask questions you can't answer honestly. You change your routes without being told to, not out of fear, just out of a calibration that has become automatic. Your phone gets a second lock. Your answers to simple questions get shorter, more considered, better constructed. You have become careful in the particular way that people become careful when they are carrying something that cannot be explained at a dinner table. Your sister gets the treatment. You are there when the doctor's tone shifts from managed expectations to something that sounds almost like optimism. You sit in that corridor under fluorescent lights, and you feel something enormous and true move through your chest, and you do not examine what paid for it, because examining it would require you to look at yourself in a way you are not ready for. Don Aurelio starts to trust you differently. You wait outside fewer rooms. Some meetings, you sit at the edge of. He says your sister's name when he asks about her, not just your sister. And you notice this the way you notice a key fitting a lock you didn't know existed. You catch yourself feeling proud of his trust. You pick up that feeling and examine it briefly and set it somewhere you don't have to look at again immediately. He is not kind. You know this. But strategic and kind can look identical from inside the warmth they produce. One night past Kerrville, under a sky packed with unreasonable stars, his voice finds you from the back seat. Sooner or later, Don Aurelio says, every man near me has to decide what kind of loyalty he actually has. You say nothing. You drive. You feel the question drop into you like a stone into deep water. You are still waiting to hear it hit bottom. Step 6, the boy. You know this is different before anyone tells you. You know it when you see the motel outside Tucson, the kind of flat, dry, anonymous building that was chosen specifically for its anonymity. You know it when you see the cars in the lot, too new and too plain, the rental car blankness of vehicles that are not meant to be remembered. You know it when you see 4 men standing near a rust-red door with the stillness of people who are not nervous because they have already decided what this evening is. You park. You get out. You feel the desert air, dry and still, and the sky above it the color of a bruise going yellow at the edges. You stand near the car and you wait, because waiting is what you do in places like this, because the alternative is asking a question, and you have learned that questions are expensive here. The door opens. You see the boy. He is maybe 17. He is wearing a sports t-shirt that has been through too many washes. He is not performing bravery. His legs have the loose, unreliable quality of a body that has already started making independent decisions. And his jaw is working at nothing, and he looks at the ground, and then at his hands, and then at nothing in particular. He does not look hardened. He looks the way your sister looked the first morning in the hospital, surprised that something like this was actually happening to him. Don Aurelio watches him with the same expression he uses for a long highway. Unreadable. Patient. The men explain that the boy was found near a shipment. He says he didn't know what he was carrying. He keeps saying that. One of them says. No one responds. The silence has a rehearsed quality. Don Aurelio turns to you. Not toward you. To you. Deliberate. Like the entire evening has been arranged to arrive at this particular moment. Do you believe in mercy? You answer carefully. Honestly. Slightly slower than normal because some part of you has understood before the rest of you caught up that this is not a conversation. This is an assessment. He nods. Remember this moment, he says. Then he tells you to drive the boy away. No guards. No second car. No instructions about a destination. No witnesses. You open the passenger door. The boy looks at you with the face of someone who has just understood that you are the only variable left in the equation. You don't let yourself look too long. You get in. You drive. Step 7. The door. His name is Elias, and he tells you this 15 miles out, his voice thin and careful, the way someone speaks when they are testing whether speaking is allowed. You say nothing. You watch the road. He is from Nogales. He has a cousin who drives freight. He got into a car with people he thought he understood and ended up at a motel outside Tucson that he had never seen and could not leave. He is not dressed for what happened tonight. He is dressed for a Tuesday. He got into this the way you got into this, through a gap that looked like an opening and turned out to be a closing. You drive. The highway goes flat and dark and long in both directions, and there is nothing on either side to orient yourself by. You feel the boys breathing in the car the way you feel weather moving. Shallow. Fast. Controlled by someone trying to control it. He doesn't ask you directly. He asks you sideways. Are you going back to those men after this? And the real question is fully visible inside the shape of the question he used, the way a stone is visible through shallow water. You don't answer. You think about your sister. About the corridor with the fluorescent lights that made every surface look temporary. About the version of yourself that sat outside her room at 2 a.m. and said, quietly, to no one, I would do anything. You remember meaning it completely. You did not understand then what anything contained. You think about Mateo. The dangerous part is when your conscience starts invoicing itself. You understand now what that invoice looks like. It looks like 15 miles of empty highway with a terrified boy in your passenger seat and a choice you cannot avoid by continuing to drive. You know this might be a test. You know that if it is a test and you pass it by not following the order, you might be fine. You know that if it is not a test and you don't follow the order, you might not see tomorrow morning. You know you cannot calculate which is true with the information you have. You have maybe 4 miles left to decide. A gas station appears on the right. One pump. A flickering fluorescent light. Closed but lit. You slow down. You pull over. Gravel loud under the tires. Elias's breathing changes. You stare straight ahead. Your hands are on the wheel. Your jaw is tight. You think about the version of yourself you have to live inside after tonight ends, and you understand there are only 2 versions available, and only one of them is survivable in the way that matters. You unlock the door. You look straight ahead. Not at him. Run. One word. Everything in it. You hear his sneakers on the gravel. Then the asphalt. Then nothing. You sit in the silence he leaves behind for exactly 1 minute. The light flickers once and holds. You pull back onto the road. You drive back toward San Antonio alone, and the highway is the same highway it was an hour ago, and you are not the same person who drove it. Step 8. The wait. You return. You park the car. You go up to your apartment, and you sit on the edge of the bed with the lights off and your phone face up on the mattress, and you wait for it to light. It doesn't light. You are awake until 4 a.m. You are awake the next night too. You replay the decision the way a mind replays something unresolved, not to revisit it, but because it cannot stop, the way a tongue finds a sore tooth not from curiosity, but from compulsion. You examine the choice from every angle you can find. You look for the place where it was reckless, where it was sentimental, where it was the kind of stupid that gets people killed. You cannot locate it. And that is not reassurance. That is just the particular loneliness of having done something unreachable by anyone else's judgment. Days pass. The schedule resumes as if nothing in Tucson happened. Tuesday pickup. Thursday run. The same roads, the same silences, the same backseat presence of a man reading philosophy with his glasses pushed to his forehead. Don Aurelio asks about your sister once, how the treatment is progressing, whether the numbers are moving. You answer normally. He receives the answer normally. You study his face in the mirror for something. Anger, assessment, the cold calculation of a man deciding what to do with a driver who didn't follow an order, and you find nothing readable. The not knowing is worse than consequence would be. Consequence has a shape. You can prepare for a shape. You cannot prepare for nothing. Mateo appears on a Wednesday run to El Paso. He says nothing about Tucson. He says nothing about anything specific. He sits with his portfolio and the 4 years his face carries, and at a red light in Horizon City, he finds your eyes in the rearview mirror and holds them for exactly long enough to communicate that he already knows what kind of week you've had. The worst verdicts, he says, are the ones that take their time. He goes back to his portfolio. 3 weeks of silence. Then the message arrives through the regular channel. Don Aurelio requests your presence at his private residence. Not a pickup point. Not a route. His home. You read it 4 times. You look at your hands. You type one word back. Confirmed. You sit completely still for the rest of the afternoon. You wait for it to become evening. It does. Step 9. The test. You drive yourself to his property for the first time. The house sits behind old live oaks on land that doesn't appear on any map you've ever pulled up, and a man opens the gate before you reach it, and another meets you at the door before you knock, and you are taken through a room lined with books. Real books, red books, the kind with broken spines and folded pages, and out to a covered terrace where Don Aurelio sits at a stone table with an espresso and the Aurelius paperback open in front of him. He does not seem dangerous tonight. You understand immediately that this is the most dangerous thing about tonight. He lets you sit. He pours a second espresso from a small ceramic pot with the unhurried ease of a man who already knows every word this conversation contains. He ran, he says. Not a question. He was inside the information before you were, and you know this, and he knows you know it. I know exactly where you stopped. I know what you said to him. He wraps both hands around his cup. I know what you chose not to do. You wait. 7 men in that seat since 2009, he says. 3 followed the instruction immediately. 2 followed it reluctantly. Which, you should understand, is worse. 1 wept, which communicated everything I needed to know about his usefulness. A pause. And 1, before you, stopped at a gas station and said 1 word to the boy. You ask quietly what happened to that man. He still works for me, Don Aurelio says. Different capacity. The silence after this is long and shaped on purpose. I want to be clear about what this is, he says. I am not rewarding virtue. A man who kills a frightened boy on command will betray me on command one day. Men without limits are not loyal. They are simply available to whoever is standing in front of them. I needed to understand where your limits are. He picks up the paperback. Now I know. He stands. He moves toward the door. At the threshold, without turning. You passed. Now I know what you won't do. The only question that matters now, is whether you know what you still will. You sit alone on that terrace for a long time. The live oaks move in the evening wind, and you feel the weight of passing a test you didn't know you were taking, and you understand that passing it has not made you safer. It has made you more known. And being known by a man like this is not the same thing as being free. Step 10, the exit. You drive for another year. You drive the same roads. You sit in the same seat. You watch the same highways unspool through the same windshield at the same hours. The money arrives on the same schedule, clean and precise. Your sister is in remission. Your mother's block has 3 working streetlights where there used to be 1. You have repaired the thing you set out to repair, and you are still here, and you are trying to understand why. You watch Mateo. You watch what useful service does to a man across 4 years. How it removes things from him so gradually that you can't point to the exact moment anything went, only to the accumulation of absences. You watch Don Aurelio receive gratitude the way a landscape receives rain, without softness, without surprise, as something that simply belongs to the terrain and always has. You begin to see the structure you are inside, not from outside it, from inside it. The way you see a room's walls when the lights come on, even though you are still standing in the room. You understand now that staying does not require a single enormous act of surrender. It requires 1,000 small ones, each one barely visible, each one reasonable in the moment it is offered, each one quietly removing another piece of the person you were when you first picked up a car key in a cafe on a Tuesday morning. You leave on a Thursday. No announcement. No confrontation. You return the key through the woman who gave it to you, in a message so plain and final that it does not invite response. You wait for the phone to ring. It doesn't ring. You never learn whether that silence means you were beneath consequence, or whether what happened outside Tucson earned you an exit that most people who work near Don Aurelio never receive, or whether a man like him simply adjusts and continues the way the highway continues past the place where you turned off. You don't need to know. What you know is enough. You know that power doesn't look from the inside the way it looks from the outside. From the inside, it looks like a room that rearranges itself slowly and quietly around you until the door is somewhere you can no longer find without deciding to look. You decided to look. You found the door. You walked through it. Not because you defeated anything. Because you understood, finally, that proximity to power is not the same as purpose. And because when it asked you who you were still able to answer. That is the only thing, in a life built on someone else's design, that was ever entirely yours.